All right, so I wanted to talk with y'all a little bit about life and the game of chess. Okay, so for those of you who haven't seen my previous video, I was reflecting on some life lessons that you can take from the game of Texas Hold'em poker. Okay, and to summarize that video in one sentence, it would be that you cannot get tilted, in the sense that you cannot let emotions about your past mistakes govern your decisions in the present moment. Okay. But, I wanted to kind of emphasize that there's some nuance to this, and I wanted to use the game of chess as a further analogy for this life lesson, okay? So, the idea is that in chess, you cannot focus only on your current move and just on the immediate effects of that move, okay? So, in chess, what you need to consider is the current position of the board, and that should be your primary focus, but every decision that you make has to be geared towards understanding the future, right? You need to think several moves ahead. You need to understand your opponent's moves. And so I view chess almost like a dance, right? And it's a dance of ideas. And one of the life lessons you can take is that it is not enough to only focus on just the present moment if you want to achieve a long-term goal. If you have a long-term goal, then you need to make plans, and you need to make plans that are good, right? Some of your plans are going to fail, and at every position, at every step of your plan, and at every position of the chessboard, you have to reevaluate your plan and see, is your plan currently effective? Okay, so is your study plan currently effective? Are you achieving the goals of your study plan? But not only are you achieving your short-term study goals, but are they conducive to long-term growth? Is it a successful plan, right? So you want to study in two ways. One, just deterministically with the amount of hours that you put into your studies. You want to work hard, okay? You want to put in a lot of hours. But the second thing you need to do is you need to study intelligently, okay? Putting in hours is not going to be enough. You need to structure your study plan intelligently, and what that means is you kind of have to get meta and study your study plan. Study the way that you learn, okay? Study the way that you learn math, figure out how you learn best, create different metrics and different kind of ways to test your own knowledge and your own understanding. A couple ideas are don't just do the exercises of the textbook. Maybe once in a while, create your own exercise, or ask yourself, if you're doing an exercise of a textbook, maybe think about, are there ways that this exercise could be made different? Like what other questions could I ask related to this, right? So going beyond just what you read from the textbook, going beyond just the exercises in the textbook. When you read the textbook, think about the material on your own. Don't just think about it through the lens of the author. You need to process the material in your own mind, okay? This is like the analogy in chess. And there's a great book that I'd recommend to y'all, actually, called How to Study Chess. And I'll post the link in the description of the video, okay? But even for those of you who don't know a single thing about chess, you should read chapter 1 of this book if you can get your hands on it, because it has some serious life lessons about how to study. Basically, how to study. And one of the things that it says is that you can't just focus on the expert analysis of the game. You need to do your own analysis. You cannot just rely on the expert's analysis, okay? So don't just rely on the analysis of your professor. Don't just rely on the analysis of your textbook. Do your own analysis. And furthermore, this is just one example of ways in which you can improve the way that you study and engage with material, okay? But to understand the ways that you can improve your study habits, you need to study how to study. And I feel like chess is a good model for study habits, because it requires an interplay of evaluating the current position objectively. Of course, you cannot be focused on the past. The past, you have to just let it go. You can't focus on the mistakes of the past. You need to evaluate the current position as it is, objectively, without emotion. And then the current position as it is, you need to evaluate it from both sides and understand your strengths and your weaknesses, right? Understanding the strengths and weaknesses of your study schedule, writing them down, listing out what are my study strengths, what are my study weaknesses, and then trying to, remove those weaknesses one by one, okay? And then you need to look at different possibilities, different ways that you could progress, right? And this happens at every stage, at every move of the chessboard, okay? So every time that you make a move, you reevaluate the position. You reevaluate. So the metaphor here is like every time that you achieve some short-term goal, you reevaluate, you reflect on your study process, you reflect on your current study schedule, and you try to make improvements and adjustments and change these things, okay? So changing the way that you study and basically trying to figure out the way that you learn best, and also the form of learning that's conducive to long-term goals, okay? If you don't have long-term goals, then it's not going to be very easy for you to create a really structured plan, right? If you don't know what you're going to study, then it's not easy to figure out what textbook you need to work from, right? But the point is, once you figure out a long-term goal, you can start taking short-term goals. Like, let's say my long-term goal is I want to study optimal transport, but I'm just an early mathematician and I don't even know much about how to get there. Well, and let's say I'm just an starting out undergraduate student. Well, what I could do is I could first figure out, I could learn analysis, right? And once I learn analysis, I learn calculus, then analysis. Once I learn analysis, then I learn PDE. And once I learn PDE, then I can start studying optimal transport. Each of those steps represents a single possible plan. And there are multiple plans that you could, there are like so many possible plans that you need to evaluate and think through about the way that you want to study. But that's one possible way of getting to optimal transport. And now each step of that specific plan has different goals and different ways that it can be approached. For example, if I'm at analysis, I need to choose the right textbook. And then once I choose the right textbook, I need to figure out how to study that textbook effectively, okay? And let's suppose, so I need to choose the right textbook and then figure out how to study the textbook effectively, and I need to find supplemental resources online like lecture notes, etc. if I'm not taking the course, or I could take a course if I'm in college. But the point is that once I choose my textbook, I start working through it. Well, maybe it's not the best textbook for me, right? Maybe there's a better textbook out there that's better written for my own learning process. And so I need to keep reading different textbooks, right? And kind of get a feel for how different authors approach the subject so that I can figure out what's the right author for me, what's the right author where I can really spend a lot of time on this author's textbook on analysis. Once I find that, then I have to figure out how I'm going to read and do the exercises, or how I'm going to balance the reading and the exercises to learn real analysis, right? So there's another balance that has to occur. Once you choose even the textbook and you have a specific subject and textbook outline that you need to study, you still have to balance reading and exercises, right? You can't just do exercises and you can't just read. And everyone finds a different balance that's best for them, but at the end of the day, you have to, in balancing reading and exercises, I would say that some people really just focus on the exercises maybe a little bit too much, and they need to focus more on the material. Don't just jump to the exercises. Make sure you deeply understand the theory first. Once you understand the theory deeply, then approach the exercises and aim for quality over quantity in your exercises. When you're doing exercises, do each one very thoroughly and rigorously, rather than trying to do a ton of exercises at once, okay? And so then once you get your study plan outlined and you have a weekly schedule, like let's say I plan that I'm doing reading Monday, Tuesday, and exercises on Thursday, and I have a certain hourly commitment. Monday, Tuesday, I'm reading for 3 hours. Thursday, I'm doing exercises for 3 hours. Once I outline all these processes in my study plan, then I need to execute that, commit to that, do it on a daily basis consistently. And if I miss a day or if I miss a week, just don't let it get to me. Just don't let it affect me. Just keep sticking to the study schedule, staying consistent. And then finally, like the game of chess, at every step and at every stage of this process, reevaluate my study plan. Reevaluate how I'm learning. and adjust, make adjustments, okay? Every move in chess, you reevaluate the position with an eye towards the future, okay? With an eye several steps ahead. How am I going to get to my long-term goals? I'm not just randomly studying things. I mean, for those of you who want to randomly study things, that's great, but I tried to do that, and at the end of the day, I got so branched out with all these different subjects that I wasn't making progress. I was plateauing, quite literally, in the sense that I was learning math, and the branches that I were learning were just branching out and becoming like so far divorced from each other that I couldn't even really deeply learn one specific subject. So then I was like, okay, well now I just need to pick one field, one or two fields, and just really stick to those, right? And honestly, one field is enough. And then even choosing one field like optimal transport, there's so many things that I need to know for optimal transport. I need to know PDE. I need to know Riemannian geometry. I need to know analysis. All of these subjects I need to know very, very, very well before I even begin optimal transport or a deeper understanding of optimal transport. And then on top of that, I need numerical. I need to know how to code. I need to know how to simulate these things, which requires knowledge of numerical linear algebra. Okay, so there's so many fields that go into a successful implementation of optimal transport. And so even just choosing one field, there's like so many things, so many aspects of my learning that need to be planned out so that I ensure that I have the right foundations to understand what I'm doing, right? So I think this was a good video. I hope that you took something from this. I know I was kind of going all over the place, but hopefully you can take something from this video and use some of these thoughts to improve your own study habits. And I wish you all a wonderful day.